I am in Atlanta, Georgia, and in this video we are going to scope out a few filming locations from Avengers Endgame and Stranger Things, as well as some battlefield monuments. The first stop is this memorial in a traffic triangle next to a shady gas station. This is the spot where Confederate Colonel Francis Marion Walker was killed on July 22, 1864, during the Battle of Atlanta. He was shot off his horse while scoping out Union positions as he led his division towards the battle. His notice that he had been promoted to Brigadier General arrived the next day, so it was a bit too late for that. I am now in a neighborhood that was built over the former woods where Confederate Major General Patrick Cleburne's skirmish line was set during the afternoon of the battle. And it was right at this location, now deep in the middle of a neighborhood, that the Union Army lost one of its highest ranking officers of the entire war. This roundabout monument marks the spot where Union Major General James Birdseye McPherson was killed. Since the Union Army was separated into three groups as they attacked Atlanta, Confederate Lieutenant General Hardee's Corps did an overnight march to attempt to attack a perceived weakness on the rear of McPherson's line on the southwest of the city around here. Luckily for them, they had reinforcements to help stave off that assault. So on the afternoon of July 22nd, as the battle broke out, McPherson left Sherman's headquarters to see how the 17th Corps was doing. However, he unexpectedly came upon General Cleburne's skirmish line right here. He had some staff members with him, but they were in no position to fight as they found themselves directly in the sights of an enemy picket line. Captain Beard of the 5th Confederate was surprised to see a Union general roll up on his line defenseless, so he threw up his sword to signal him to surrender. Instead, McPherson raised his hat in salute, suddenly pivoted to the right and dashed away on his horse. So they opened fire on him. The general was struck in the back right by the heart and died instantly. McPherson's remains were recovered during the midst of the battle and were brought to Sherman's headquarters, where reportedly the general openly wept at the news of his death. Sherman's headquarters were set up at the Augustus Hurt House, which is where the Jimmy Carter Presidential Center stands today. Some of Sherman's men burned it down on the way out of town. In reaction, General Grant said that, quote, "The country had lost one of its best soldiers, and I have lost my best friend." General James McPherson was buried atop a hill in his tiny hometown of Clyde, Ohio, where there is an impressive statue. McPherson was really amiable and respected amongst his colleagues. In fact, many were assuming that he would become the next president of the United States, but that never came to be. McPherson was one of the 4 Union major generals to be killed during the Civil War. In this battle, McPherson was facing off against his old West Point classmate John Bell Hood, and the Confederate general was saddened by his old friend's demise. Another sad irony is that McPherson had just requested a leave of absence to get married, but he was denied. Cleburne's attack on the Federal rear here did initially overrun the Union line and got a top-ranking general killed, but within hours of McPherson's death, the battle was thoroughly lost and the Confederates retreated from Atlanta as the city burned. The Union suffered 3,700 casualties during the battle, while the Confederates suffered over 5,500. Sadly, very little, if any, of the Atlanta battlefield was preserved, as the city was rebuilt and expanded beyond its hallowed grounds. Sherman's boys did burn the city down, so barely anything remains from before. A mere couple of blocks away from where the great American general was killed stands the home of Captain America. This house was featured in the concluding scene of one of the biggest and highest grossing movies of all time, Avengers Endgame. After the final battle of the film, Captain America, aka Steve Rogers, travels back in time to return the Infinity Stones, but decides to stay and live out a happy ending with his beloved Peggy Carter from the 1940s up to the present.
No, I don't think I will.
Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter apparently lived atop the battlefield here in this little vintage house on Metropolitan Southeast, approximately along the site of Cleburne's skirmish line. The final scene of the film pans from across the street into that window, where it is revealed that Captain Rogers finally got his dance. It was a wonderful conclusion to his character in that era of the Avengers, so it is really awesome to see this iconic house in person. I also noticed a damaged old General McPherson historical marker on the porch. I suppose a tribute from a fictional American war hero to a real one. I have now come to nearby Grant Park because there used to be a major Civil War attraction right next to Zoo Atlanta. No, Grant Park was definitely not named after Union General U.S. Grant, who by the way was not involved in the battle that took place around here. Instead, it was named for Colonel Lemuel P. Grant, who was a railroad magnate, and also designed Atlanta's defenses during the Civil War, which did not stop Sherman's army. This grand 1885 structure at the entrance of the zoo is a former Civil War themed attraction, as it was the longtime home to the Atlanta Cyclorama and Civil War Museum. The Atlanta Cyclorama is one of just a few extant cycloramas in the United States. It is a colossal circular painting depicting the Battle of Atlanta. Visitors would enter through the center of the big room on the back, to be fully surrounded by the painting and immersed into the battle, enhanced with extra figures and props set to look as if they are protruding from the painting. Cyclorama paintings of famous battles and places were popular late 19th century attractions in Europe and America, and the Atlanta Cyclorama was finished in 1886 intended for northern audiences. It was originally displayed in several Midwestern cities, including Indianapolis, Indiana, until it ended up on permanent display here in Atlanta in 1892. The story portrayed by the painting was modified a bit for southern audiences so that the Confederacy won the Battle of Atlanta. Not sure how that worked, but it was advertised as showing, quote, the only Confederate victory ever painted. However, those interpretive changes were reversed in the 1930s. Problem is, the Atlanta Cyclorama is no longer here. This museum closed down in 2015, but the Cyclorama was relocated to the Atlanta History Center, where it is now on display once again. I have not had a chance to visit that yet, but it is one of only 2 surviving battle cycloramas in the US, the other being the Gettysburg Cyclorama. Now the historic Cyclorama Hall is the zoo's Savannah Hall, but they don't seem to do much with it. They should exhibit animals inside. While it is great that the Cyclorama has a new home, I definitely wish I could have seen it here where it had been displayed for over a century. Here's a monument to Thomas W. Talbot, the founder of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, who was murdered in 1892. I did come to visit the zoo and see the last pandas in America, at the time, so check out my separate videos on that linked in the description. But now there is one more filming location I wanted to scope out before departing Atlanta. That is the historic abandoned Briarcliff Mansion, which has been used recently on Doom Patrol. This behemoth of an abandoned building, possibly unrestricted property, is the Hawkins National Laboratory from Stranger Things. The iconic laboratory, set in Hawkins, Indiana, is where horrible experiments on children occurred and interdimensional gateways were opened on the hit show Stranger Things. The exterior from this side is shown in most seasons, and a lot of people are shown getting massacred inside. I imagine it will make one final appearance in the upcoming season 5 as the show wraps up. In fact, they may have been filming some scenes here recently. The menacing lab looms over downtown Atlanta. You may be wondering what on earth this thing was. It was actually the Georgia Mental Health Institute from the 60s. It was indeed a psychiatric hospital owned by Emory University. The hospital closed down in the late 90s and has sat abandoned ever since. There's a series of steam tunnels underneath the old hospital, and apparently it was always super creepy inside. That really is an unnerving and strange building. It is currently condemned to be demolished, so it might not be around much longer. It is thoroughly boarded up and locked, so I will not be attempting to trespass inside. If you do decide to go try and see it before it is destroyed, just be aware that security does come and check on it. I am gonna get the heck out of here. Well, those were some neat locations in Atlanta. If you enjoyed the tour, then check out my other content featuring a wide variety of locations all around the United States and Europe. I have filmed several attractions around Atlanta as well. Please click the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel too. Thanks for watching!